Welcome back to Old School Eats. In this episode, we're going to tackle something that is particularly apropos for me, a fatty. We're going to do a mac and chorizo stuffed fatty on Old School Eats. All right, so what is a fatty? Most of you know what it is and know it doesn't have anything to do with recreational smoking in this particular case. What we're going to do is we're going to take and make a bacon lattice. I'm not going to video making a bacon lattice because, to be honest, it's just not rocket science. There's 1,000 videos out there of how to do it. You crisscross bacon. But when you crisscross the bacon, we're then going to do something incredibly cool and fat, or cool and not fat, or fat and not cool. I'm not sure how you look at it, but we're going to take sausage, in this case some breakfast sausage. I'm going to mix some hot with some mild, and we make a whole layer of that, and then you can stuff it with anything. People do breakfast fatties. I've seen cheesesteak fatties. Pretty much anything you can imagine stuffing inside of a meatloaf made of sausage wrapped in bacon is apparently called a fatty. Today, we're going to take some mac and cheese left over from my son Drew's party yesterday. We're going to shove some chorizo in it because why not add more different sausage? We're going to put that in the middle, wrap the whole thing up, cook it on our smoker, and then we're going to slice it up and we're going to have a little slice of heaven. That's what's coming up. So despite all my confidence speaking, I've not made a fatty before. And everyone says you use a pound of sausage, and I think that's not sufficient. I know you're supposed to wrap this thing all the way around it, but I don't think you have to. I think you've got to get covered. So I've got a pound-ish of hot sausage and a pound-ish of mild sausage from my niece Ann's farm, Ford Chimney Farm. And I'm going to mix those together so we don't get just a bite of hot, though. To be honest, this sausage wasn't overly seasoned anyway. It wasn't super spicy. But I want to mix it up so you're not getting only one bite. And then I'm going to flatten it out on the parchment paper that's below this wonderful disposable bowl from the Ghostbuster party that happened here yesterday. I'm not going to season it beyond that because I think the bacon and the rub that we eventually put on top will be enough. Oh, you know what? I might put some rub in the middle of this. I think we'll do that. So this is really just agitating the two different sausages together. Then we're going to put it down, and I'm going to pull from my man Matt from Meat Church's idea, I think, and assemble this in one chunk. So let's get this guy out onto the board. We're going to try and make it vaguely the same perimeter as the bacon lattice you just saw in B-roll, probably. I insisted I was not going to show you how to do a bacon lattice because, well, there's 1,000 videos on it. So going from memory, the trick, and my man Malcolm on the camera over here reminded me, we've got to make it such that this will hold together during the folding process and hold enough of this macaroni and cheese with chorizo in it. So I'll continue to press, and hopefully the audio is not making me sound like I'm giving birth to a child. We have tried to move the microphone multiple times so it doesn't sound like I'm running a freaking marathon when I cook. So apologies to you guys if it does. I think that's about the right size. Think so, Malcolm?
Yeah, looks good.
All right. So next we're going to pull in the mac and cheese and chorizo and get that mixed together, and we'll put it all together. So as I mentioned in the intro, for filling on a fatty, you can kind of follow your heart, as Rumi would say. We're going to go with macaroni and cheese and chorizo. Looking at how much room we have in this sausage, it is less than I expected, which is pretty much standard for the course. I typically try and shove more things in than can fit. He said coyly. We will throw the macaroni and cheese in here, and I already cooked off this chorizo. I will probably put some B-roll in of chorizo because I have B-roll of chorizo. Now we're going to mix this into a mildly homogeneous filling. Chorizo is very greasy, which is why I pulled some of the grease out. I figure we're going to have plenty of bacon grease coming through this. I am going to throw this in the fridge and let it set up a bit. The nice part is if you make too much filling, you can always just eat it. Because I've made too much filling. But right now, it smells pretty damn good. This was just basic macaroni and cheese from the party. You could already see B-roll mac and cheese. I just didn't have that much initiative. So we have our filling. We're going to chill this. We're going to chill the sausage, combine them, and get this thing into that lattice. We're going to do the fatty, girthy side. There was some concern before we put this thing together that we were going to do this, and I called it transversely on the first cut that we had to delete because my seasonings had done something that all seasonings do that I'll describe. But there was a thought that we were going to roll this fatty this way. We're not. We're going to roll it this way, so it's going to be a girthier fatty, not a long fatty. I know that's a matter of preference. Follow your heart on what you want to do. I'm going to go with Myra Mixon seasonings today. And with seasonings in general, I buy too many of them, and I store them for too long. All seasonings will do this. They use different anti-caking agents in there to stop it. But even in a dry space, sometimes they'll cake up. So if you've got a seasoning you're using, you haven't used it in a while, make sure you open it up, get in there, break it up, because the moisture's caused it to kind of cake up a bit. This isn't unique to his seasonings. Happens with my Cosmo seasonings and my Heath Ryle seasonings too. I've got his original barbecue and I've got his hickory. And when we brought them both out, I always forget how good the hickory seasoning is. It smells awesome. I'm going to season the inside of this guy with the hickory seasoning. Get a good little base flavor on the sausage. Because like I said, the butcher or the packer, whatever you call him, I'm not a farm person, who did this sausage did not overly season this sausage. If you have a really seasoned sausage, maybe you don't need this process. I think we do. Now, we're going to take our wonderful chorizo and mac and cheese, and we're going to create a tube of it right here. Then we're going to fold this thing together into a meat-like burrito. And if the gods of barbecue are on our side, this will all just work. So, I'm going to take this spoon, put it in my hand, because whatever I don't use, I fully intend to eat. And if you guys weren't watching this video, I'd have done it with dirty ass hands, but you are. All right. So this seems to be where there is some magic of the fatty. Because you've got to do this and leave enough room so that this will seal. But you want enough fat or enough filling that it's evident that there's filling. So there's some compression that I'm doing here. And I think that is about what we're going to get away with. Mal, you think I can go with more, or do you think that's about
good.
it?
That's good.
All right. Well, we're going to start with that, and then we're going to do the roll. As they say, there's nothing to it but to do it. So now we're going to try and roll this guy together. I may even move this around to make this a little easier. I'm going to take the back end of this up, come across, start to peel that parchment paper off, hoping to create enough of a seam. Oh, I got it in there a little bit. Come on now, parchment paper. There we go. Oh, hey now. You see how it's starting to crack a little bit? We got a little bit of cheese explosion down here, macaroni and cheese explosion. All of this could have benefited from me being more patient and chilling this more and probably not stuffing it as much. But I'm not known for patience, and I'm not known for not stuffing things too much. So right now we've got our fatty. Gonna roll it back. Therefore testing its structural integrity some more. Sweating like I'm playing sports. But in general, I'm very pleased with how this looks. Now, will the lattice cover it entirely? Hell no. Will it cover it mostly? Yes. And will it be delicious? I suspect so. All right. So this is where the rubber meets the road. I've got our fatty, which we're so enamored with. Malcolm and I both thought about just cooking like a meatloaf made of sausage. But we're not going to do that. I'm going to try and get this jank put right in the middle. Roll my bacon lattice up from both sides. Then using the parchment paper for additional structural integrity, flip my boy right back over here, and then we'll be ready to let it set for a second before we put it on the smoker. We're going to do this in one take, hopefully. It may end up all over the damn kitchen island. I just don't know. So we're going to see what we can do here. Well, that part worked. I have immediately aborted the original plan, but the plan that I went with actually seems to have worked pretty well. This is now gone. And we now have our bacon wrapped fatty. Now, you could certainly go shove toothpicks in the end of this if you want to. I know that the better cooks out there would do that. I do not have that attention to detail in this particular. I'm just pleased as punch that this is one structure at this point. I can move it around with parchment paper. I can put it on a tray, and we're gonna go put this in the Bark pellet cooker at about 275 degrees. We're staying all Myron mixing on this one. We're Myron seasonings, Myron's cooker. I always use Myron's cookers. 275. I don't know. It's got to get to 160 degrees for the sausage to be cooked. Probably going to take a couple hours. And then we're going to crank that temperature up a little bit higher to try and crisp the bacon. I use thin bacon intentionally on this lattice because they said it's better. It was a pain in the ass to work with, but I think it has a better chance of crisping up. Then we have to let it sit and we'll slice it up, but we'll take you out to the cooker next. We are back out in the meat palace. We have our sausage fatty sitting here. It's been chilled in the fridge for a little while. My man Malcolm came up with a good idea. The honey killer bee that we normally use has a chipotle version that I've now repurposed this jar for. And while we got some seasoning in there, could it really be bad to put more seasoning on it? I don't think so. So we're going to season up the outside before we put this in. Get a little bit more flavor in our world. And yeah, I know it's not all going to stick. And I'll do some stuff like this, making the guys at Cosmo, all my rub people happy because I use a lot of their rubs. Get it seasoned up. Now, this is going to be a little tricky. I mentioned in the other video, we're doing 2 videos back to back, so disregard these ribs, just pretend they don't exist. Now, this son of a gun will go right there. And yes, he's cooking under the ribs because that can't be bad anyway. So we'll let them go at 275. This guy's gonna go for 90 minutes. We'll temp it. We're trying to get to about 160. Then we'll sauce it up a little bit, let it tack up, and then let it sit and rest so we can slice it and not have things ooze everywhere. Welcome back to the Meat Palace. We're gonna check on our sausage fatty. I don't know if I've got a real good name for this. I think I called it a mac and chorizo smoked fatty. I'm gonna have to come up with a title for the thumbnail. It's been cooking for about 90 to 100 minutes. I don't know why I use minutes either. Almost an hour and 30, 40 minutes, something like that. We're gonna check the temperature for ground pork. You need to get over 160. I'm going to check the temp. The bacon hopefully is rendered and is giving up some of that wonderful bacon fat to the rest of the sausage roll. We talked about jacking the temperature up and trying to crisp the bacon up a little bit, but since I'm doing a dual cook, don't tell, I don't want to risk the ribs that are in here by going up. Now, realistically, it probably wouldn't do anything wrong, but it also is going to be a limited effect on the fatty. So let's check out the fatty now, see where we're at. Oh boy, that is looking pretty damn good. $139, $138. Down toward the ends, we're closer to 150. All right, I'm gonna move him a little bit, risking life and limb. Making a mess. Put him back in there. I think he's got to go for another 20 minutes and we'll check him. I'm not going to run the risk of screwing the cook up by trying to crisp that bacon up. The bacon looks good to me. We use thin bacon, as I lamented earlier. It was kind of a pain in the ass to do the lattice work with, but you're not trying to cook or render down really thick bacon. So probably about 20 minutes. We'll check this back in. Once it gets to that 160 mark or a little bit above, and I feel safe that that sausage is all cooked because we were very thick on that sausage, we're gonna take it off, let it rest, and then we'll slice it up. Palace, the weather is starting to get a little bit crappy, but we're gonna be out of here just in time with our fatty, I suspect. When we were out here last time, it had still had a little bit to go. We're gonna see where we're at though. I'm sure as hell looks good. $168 there in the middle, which is the most plump of the area. Is 168 here. I'm gonna call it. Now this is precarious. Has some juices that I don't want to lose. I'm going to though. Actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Worked out pretty well. We'll get this inside. We'll let it rest for a little while. Then we'll transfer it off the parchment paper onto a cutting board. And we will do some slicing. I have gotten some reports that it smells incredible. My cameraman may, in fact, have just cheated on his lovely partner at home by being this romantically involved with a piece of meat. I just realized that my Myers lemon or my mini tangerine has an odd upshoot coming out. Look at that tree. I don't know why we're putting this on the video, but why is there one janky branch going right up the middle there of the tree? Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's not has nothing to do with our cooking. We're gonna let this sit, and then we're gonna get out there and slice it. Call it the mac and chorizo smoked fatty. Has now rested, tented. Looks fantastic. Hopefully my cameraman's gonna get some stills we can use for the thumbnail. We were both kind of surprised at how well this cook went. There's a little bit of fat goo at the bottom that you'll get. I probably could have scraped that off, but I'm not that fancy. I'm gonna cut into it, do a little cross section. Let's see how that works. Based on the shaking of the head that Malcolm is doing, I think that looks pretty good. Smells freaking ridiculous. And is incredibly more structurally sound now that it's cooked. Here's a slice. We even got a little bit of a smoke ring, Malcolm. Look at that. Look at that, a little smoke ring. Call this overkill for slicing a bite, but I want to get a little bit of everything in there. All right, let's see what we got. Didn't get any bacon on the bite. Okay, let's get some bacon in there. Bacon for the win. Cooked really well, plenty of moisture. The chipotle seasoning we put on the top gives a little bit of spice that it needs. So I'd recommend for the family when they eat it, though my wife is not going to eat it. She doesn't like combining foods. I love her, but she's insane. I would get an entire perfect bite with some of the bacon, with the seasoning on top, the sausage, and the mac and cheese with chorizo. A fun cook. You can be creative. I would do it again. The lattice wasn't as much of a pain in the ass as everyone says it is. It's actually pretty straightforward. I'd call this a win. Malcolm will do this again. We'll do a cheesesteak or a breakfast or something else. Thanks for you guys who watch the channel. Please do remember, like, subscribe, click the bell, do all that stuff. Sorry for the big gap, but I'll be back doing more cooking when I can. And if you have ideas, suggestions, hints, other than telling me to clean my hands more often, because I really don't care about that opinion, please leave them down in the comments below, and we'll get back to you on Old School Eats.